They say silence has a weight to it. Out here in the Cascade Wilderness, 60 miles from the nearest gas station, I can confirm that's true. The silence presses down like a physical thing, heavy, suffocating, alive. My name is Ethan Rivers. For 3 years, I've been delivering packages to places that don't exist on any map. Remote cabins, off-grid homesteads, structures accessible only by logging roads abandoned decades ago. The money's decent. Hazard pay. When I started, I thought the hazards would be roads and weather. I was wrong. It's February. I'm approaching cabin 47, coordinates somewhere between nowhere and completely off the map. My GPS died 20 minutes ago. I'm navigating by printed directions and stubbornness. The forest is dense. Douglas fir and hemlock so thick they block the sun. Snow blankets everything, undisturbed except for my truck's tracks. No tire marks, no footprints, nothing suggesting anyone's been here in weeks. The cabin emerges like something from another century. 800 square feet of weathered gray logs. One dark window. Smoke rising from the chimney. Thin, steady proof of life. I kill the engine. Silence rushes in, so complete my ears ring. No birds, no wind, nothing. The package is unremarkable. Standard shoebox-sized cardboard addressed to J. Morrison, Cabin 47. No return address, maybe 2 pounds. I step into 15-degree cold. My breath fogs thick. That's when I see the note. Pinned to the door with a rusty nail written in careful, antiquated handwriting on yellowed paper. Leave package on porch. Do not knock. Do not call out. Count to 30 before returning to your vehicle. Do not look back at the cabin. Odd. But out here, everyone's running from something. Eccentric requests come with the territory. I place the package on the porch and count. 1, 2, 3. At 15, I hear something inside. Floorboards creaking, 27, 28, 29. The urge to look back is overwhelming, but I don't. I reach my truck, start the engine. As I pull away, I glance in the rearview mirror. The package is gone. Let me back up. Tell you how I got here. 3 years ago, I was drowning in debt from a failed business venture and a messier divorce. My ex-wife got the house, the car, and most of my dignity. I needed money fast, and I wasn't particular about how I earned it. The job posting was vague. Wilderness delivery driver. Must be comfortable with isolation and harsh conditions. Excellent pay. Minimal human contact. That last part sold me. After months of lawyers and accusations, minimal human contact sounded like paradise. The first 6 months were exactly what I expected. Challenging but manageable. Wake at 4 a.m. Load the truck at the depot in Millbrook, a town of maybe 300 souls clinging to existence at the forest's edge. Drive routes that snake deeper into the Cascades, delivering to preppers, hermits, and those who've chosen to disappear from society. The roads are brutal. In summer, they're rutted dirt tracks that shake your fillings loose. In winter, they're ice-covered nightmares where one wrong turn means sliding into a ravine with no cell service and no hope of rescue. I've replaced 3 windshields, blown out countless tires, and once spent 14 hours stuck in a snowbank waiting for a plow that never came. The isolation gets to you. Hours of driving through endless trees, the same gray-green monotony stretching in every direction. The radio cuts out after the first 20 miles. Cell service is a distant memory. It's just you, the engine's rumble, and your thoughts, which, trust me, aren't always great company. Most deliveries are straightforward. Leave the package at the door or in a designated box. Occasionally, you'd get a friendly wave from a window or find fresh-baked cookies left as thanks. Old Mrs. Patterson at Cabin 12 always insisted on chatting about her garden, even in February. Tom Bradshaw at Cabin 29 would sometimes flag me down to ask about sports scores, desperate for connection to the outside world. Normal people doing normal things in abnormal places. But that was before the notes started appearing. It began subtly maybe 8 months ago. A simple request here and there. Please deliver after 4 p.m. Leave package in red cooler, not on porch. Nothing that raised alarms, just preferences. Then they got stranger and stranger, until strange became something else entirely. Something that made the hair on my neck stand up and my hands shake on the steering wheel during the long drive home. People underestimate what isolation does to your mind. It's not dramatic. No sudden breakdown or screaming into the void. It's subtle, insidious. You start talking to yourself. First, it's just narrating your actions. Taking the left fork here, Cabin 32 should be 2 miles ahead. Then you're having full conversations with an empty passenger seat, debating which gas station has better coffee, arguing with your own opinions. The silence makes you hypersensitive. A branch snapping becomes something following you. Shadows between trees take on shapes they shouldn't have. Your peripheral vision catches movement that vanishes when you turn your head. The mind fills emptiness with ghosts, because emptiness is harder to process than threats. I wasn't the first driver on this route. Marcus, my dispatcher, mentioned 3 others before me. Jenkins lasted 4 months before requesting a transfer, said the wilderness was watching him. Chen made it almost a year, then quit without explanation, moved to Phoenix, about as far from trees as you can get. The one before Chen, a guy named Reeves, didn't even last 6 weeks. What happened to Reeves? I asked Marcus once. Marcus had shrugged. Just said he couldn't do it anymore. Looked like he'd seen a ghost. I'd laughed then, thought they were all soft, unprepared for the solitude. But 8 months into the job, I started understanding what might have broken them. Because it wasn't the isolation itself that got under your skin. It was realizing you weren't as alone as you thought. The second note appeared 2 weeks after Cabin 47, Cabin 18, belonging to someone named D. Hartley. The package was larger this time, a heavy box that rattled when I lifted it. The note was taped to the mailbox. Please leave package exactly 7 steps from the door. Count carefully. Thank you for your precision. I remember laughing. 7 steps? What difference could it possibly make? But I counted anyway. 1, 2, 3, 7. Placed the package down, returned to my truck. Easy money, I thought. 3 days later, Cabin 24. Mrs. Ellis, according to the label. A small envelope, probably documents or photographs. The note here was pinned under a rock on the porch steps. Do not look at the window on the left side of the cabin. Just don't. Package goes in the green box by the mailbox. This one gave me pause. Don't look at the window? Why? My eyes drifted toward it automatically. Human nature. Being told not to do something. The curtains were drawn, dark fabric revealing nothing. I forced myself to look away, placed the package in the green box as instructed. As I walked back to my truck, I could feel it, the sensation of being watched from that window, despite the closed curtains, despite the instruction, despite everything. A week passed. Cabin 39. R. Bishop. A Another note, this one more elaborate. Please hum the national anthem backwards while approaching the cabin. Do not stop humming until you return to your vehicle. This is important. I stood there holding the package, reading the note 3 times. Hum the national anthem backwards? How do you even do that? And why would anyone request something so absurd? But I did it. Started at The Brave and worked my way back to Oh Say, humming off key and feeling ridiculous. The whole time I kept expecting someone to burst out laughing, reveal the prank. No one did. When I reached my truck and stopped humming, I heard something. A voice from inside the cabin. So faint I might have imagined it. Thank you. I called Marcus that night on the satellite phone from my motel room. Hey, you getting weird notes on your deliveries? I asked, trying to sound casual. Weird how? Like specific instructions, counting steps, humming songs, that kind of thing. Marcus chuckled. Oh yeah, the eccentrics, every route's got them. Hermits get strange ideas living alone. Just follow the instructions, keep them happy, they tip well. Right, I said. Tips. But it didn't feel like eccentricity. It felt like something else, something deliberate. I started keeping a journal. Not for any noble reason, just to track the patterns, convince myself there was a logical explanation. Cabin 47J Morrison, don't look back. Package disappeared immediately. Cabin 18D Hartley, 7 steps exactly, no interaction. Cabin 24, Mrs. Ellis, avoid left window, felt watched. Cabin 39, R. Bishop, hum anthem backwards, voice said, thank you. I researched the property records at the Millbrook County office during my day off. All 4 cabins had been purchased within the last 18 months. Different buyers, different backgrounds, at least on paper. But the sale prices were identical down to the dollar, exactly $47,000 each. That felt wrong. Random cabins in different locations, different sizes, same price. You're overthinking it, I told myself. Coincidence. Government land sale program or something. At the supply store, I mentioned the strange request to Sarah Chen, the owner. She'd lived in Millbrook her entire life. Knew everyone and everything. Those new folks up in the high cabins? She frowned while bagging my groceries. Nobody knows much about them. They come into town maybe once a month, pay cash, don't talk, keep to themselves. Preppers, I suggested. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. But preppers usually form communities. These ones, they're different. Separate, but somehow connected, if that makes sense. It didn't make sense. But I nodded anyway. The real warning came from Harold Finch, a 70-year-old logger who'd worked these mountains for 5 decades. I ran into him at the gas station, and he noticed my delivery company jacket. You're the new driver, he said. It wasn't a question. 3 years now. Huh. He studied me with rheumy eyes. Longer than the others. What do you know about the folks in the remote cabins? I asked. Harold's expression darkened. I know enough to stay away. Whatever they're doing up there, whatever they're part of, it's old. Older than this town. Some things in these mountains should stay undisturbed. That's pretty vague. Vague keeps you alive, son. I drove away thinking he was just another superstitious old man, spooked by isolation and too many winters alone. I should have listened. The shift happened at cabin 33. Monsieur Vance, according to the shipping label. I knew something was different before I even parked. There was a wooden box at the end of the driveway about 3 feet square, painted black. On top of it sat a note weighted down by a smooth river stone. Place package inside the box. Close the lid. Do not look inside the box itself. Do not touch what is already there. Count to 100 before leaving. My hands trembled as I picked up the note. Do not touch what is already there. Meaning something was already inside that box. I approached slowly. The box had simple hinges, no lock. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, loud in the mountain silence. Lifting the package, I used my free hand, raised the lid just enough to slide it inside. The smell hit me first. Not decay exactly, but something organic and wrong. Copper and earth and something else, something sweet and rotten underneath. I caught a glimpse. Just a flash before I dropped the lid. Feathers. Dozens of them, and bones arranged in a pattern. And something wet and dark in the center that might have been moving. I slammed the lid shut. My stomach churned. Started counting. 1, 2, 3. At 30, I heard footsteps approaching from the cabin. Slow, deliberate. 50, 60, 70. The footsteps stopped directly behind me. 98, 99, 100. I ran to my truck without looking back. As I pulled away, I saw it in the mirror, a figure standing by the box, watching me leave. Too tall, too thin, wrong. That's when things stopped being funny. After cabin 33, I should have quit. Should have walked into the depot, thrown my keys on Marcus's desk, and never looked back. But I didn't. Something kept me driving those routes. Maybe stubbornness, maybe denial, or maybe something else had already gotten its hooks in me and I just didn't know it yet. The next request came 3 days later. Cabin 41, K. Winters. Deliver at exactly 3 a.m. on the night of the new moon, not 2:59, not 3:01, exactly 3 a.m. You will understand why. I checked my phone. New moon was in 2 days. I'd never done a night delivery before. It violated every company policy we had. But when I opened the package slip, there was an extra $200 marked as special handling fee. I told myself it was about the money. I needed the money. That's what I told myself. The drive to cabin 41 at 3 a.m. was like traveling through a void. My headlights carved a weak tunnel through absolute darkness. No moon, no stars. The trees on either side were black masses, pressing in. I arrived at 2:57 a.m., sat in the idling truck watching the clock. 2:58, 2:59, at exactly 3 a.m. I grabbed the package and stepped out. The forest had gone completely silent. Not the usual nighttime quiet. This was different. No insects, no wind, no sound of my own footsteps on the snow, as if the world had been wrapped in cotton. I placed the package on the porch and turned back. That's when I heard them. Voices. Multiple voices chanting something in a language I didn't recognize. The sound came from inside the cabin, rhythmic and ancient, rising and falling like a tide. I ran. Got back in my truck, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. The next delivery was worse. Cabin 16, A. Crane. The note was simple. Leave a single white rose with the package. Fresh. No thorns. This is not negotiable. Where was I supposed to get a white rose in the middle of winter in the mountains? The nearest florist was 60 miles away in Ridgemont. I drove there on my day off, paid $40 for a single white rose, felt like an idiot the entire time. But I did it. The delivery after that required me to wait at the cabin until I heard exactly 3 raven calls. I sat in my truck for 45 minutes in the freezing cold. When the third call finally came, it sounded wrong. Too deliberate, too evenly spaced, almost like someone was making the sounds. The feeling started subtly, a prickling at the back of my neck during deliveries, the sense that eyes were following my movements from windows that appeared empty. At first, I attributed it to paranoia. The isolation, the strange requests, the lack of sleep, they were getting to me, making me see threats where none existed. But paranoia doesn't leave physical evidence. It started with the footprints. I'd arrive at a cabin, see my own tracks from the previous delivery still visible in the snow. But alongside them, new prints, bare feet, in 15-degree weather. The prints would circle my tire marks, approach my driver's side door, then vanish as if whoever made them had simply evaporated. Then came the offerings. The first appeared on my truck's hood after a delivery to cabin 27. A perfect black feather, placed precisely in the center. Not blown there by wind. Placed. When I picked it up, it was warm. 2 days later, 3 smooth river stones arranged in a triangle on my dashboard. I'd locked the truck. I always locked the truck, yet there they were, still wet, smelling of creek water and something else. Something mineral and old. The next offering was a carved wooden figure, crude, maybe 3 inches tall, depicting something with too many limbs and a head that bent at an impossible angle. It appeared in my glove compartment. I threw it out the window, watched it tumble into the roadside ditch. The next morning it was back on my passenger seat. The shadows between the trees started moving wrong. I'd catch glimpses in my peripheral vision, tall, thin shapes that didn't move like deer or bear. They'd be there one moment, gone the next, but always just at the edge of sight, always watching. During a delivery to cabin 37, I saw one clearly for the first time. I was walking back to my truck when I glanced toward the tree line. A figure stood there, maybe 50 yards away. Human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, arms too long, its head tilted at an angle that should have broken its neck. We stared at each other for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then it smiled. I could see that from 50 yards away, the smile, too wide, too many teeth. I drove away doing 70 on a logging road rated for 25. When I checked my mirrors, there were 3 figures standing where there had been 1. That night, I found muddy handprints on my motel room window, on the 3rd floor. No balcony, no ledge, just prints, with fingers that were too long, pressed against the glass from the outside. I stopped sleeping with the lights off. The money stopped making sense in week 10. I'd completed a delivery to cabin 42, another strange request involving leaving the package during a specific phase of sunset. When I returned to my truck, there was an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside was $200 in cash and an antique coin. The coin was unlike anything I'd seen. Heavy, made of some dark metal that wasn't quite iron, wasn't quite bronze. One side showed a symbol I didn't recognize. Concentric circles with lines radiating outward like a corrupted sun. The other side depicted a forest with something tall standing among the trees. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I pocketed it. The next payment came 3 days later at cabin 19. Another envelope. $300 and a carved wooden figurine, different from the one that had appeared in my glove compartment. This one showed a person kneeling, arms raised toward something above them. The detail was exquisite and deeply unsettling. You could see the expression of ecstasy and terror on the tiny face. At cabin 28, I found a perfect black feather, tied with red thread, and $400. At cabin 31, a small vial of something dark and viscous, along with $500. The amounts were increasing. The offerings were getting stranger. I laid them all out on my motel bed one night. 7 coins, 4 figurines, 3 feathers, 2 vials, and 1 small leather pouch containing what felt like teeth. Not animal teeth. They were too uniform, too smooth. That's when I saw it. The pattern. I arranged the items by the cabin numbers where I'd received them. When I mapped those cabins on my route chart, they formed a shape. Not random. Deliberate. The cabins created a circle with cabin 47, where this all started, at the center. I pulled out my journal and reviewed every note, every request, every strange instruction. They weren't random, eccentric demands. They were steps, stages of something, the counting, the humming, the specific times, the offerings left and received. I wasn't just delivering packages. I was participating in something, some kind of ritual that had been building for months, and I'd been the unwitting conduit. The realization hit me like ice water. Every driver before me had figured this out. That's why they quit. That's why Jenkins looked haunted. Why Chen moved as far from the mountains as possible. Why Reeves disappeared. But here's what terrified me most. I'd already completed most of the deliveries. Whatever this was, whatever these people in their isolated cabins were working toward, I'd helped them get close to finishing it. And there was one more delivery scheduled. Cabin number 1. The first address on my route. The one I'd somehow never been assigned to deliver to before. It sat at the geographic center of all the other cabins. The package slip for cabin 1 arrived the next morning. No name. No specific delivery instructions. Just an address and a note at the bottom in that same antiquated handwriting I'd seen on all the others. Final delivery. Come alone, come willing. Come complete the circle. The payment listed was $10,000. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Instead, I spread everything across the motel room floor. My journal, the route maps, the offerings, photographs I'd taken of the notes. The pattern was undeniable once you knew to look for it. 47 cabins. 47 deliveries over 10 months. But cabin 1 had never received a package until now. It sat empty at the center waiting. I pulled up satellite images on my laptop. The cabin locations formed a perfect circle, approximately 30 miles in diameter. At the center, cabin 1. But there was something else. When I overlaid the topographical map, I saw it. The cabins weren't just arranged in a circle. They sat at specific points where the elevation changed, where water sources converged, where the geology shifted. Ancient sites, sacred sites. I researched the area's history at the Millbrook Library's online archives. The Cascade region had been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years before white settlement. There were stories, dismissed as legends, about circles of stones where shamans would gather during celestial events. Places where the boundary between worlds grew thin. The circles had been destroyed in the 1800s by settlers who called them devil worship. But the locations remained. The geography didn't change. Someone had rebuilt the circle. Not with stones this time, with people, with cabins, with whatever dark purpose they served. Every request I'd fulfilled hadn't been random eccentricity. They were components of a ritual. The counting established rhythm. The humming created vibration. The specific times aligned with celestial movements. The offerings, blood, bone, and belief, fed something. I thought about the figure I'd seen in the trees, the too tall shape with too many joints, the smile with too many teeth. What had Harold said? Some things in these mountains should stay undisturbed. We'd disturbed them. Or worse, we'd invited them. The previous drivers hadn't quit because they were weak. They'd quit because they'd figured it out before completing the circle, before making that final delivery to cabin 1. But I was different. I'd gone further than any of them. I'd completed 46 deliveries. Only one remained. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Package for cabin 1 ready for pickup. They're paying premium for immediate delivery. You going? $10,000. Enough to clear my debts, start over somewhere far from these mountains. All I had to do was complete one more delivery. All I had to do was drive to the center of the circle, to whatever waited there, and hand over the final package. I stared at the text for a long time. Then I started packing. The package was waiting at the depot when I arrived at dawn. Heavier than expected, roughly the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper that felt wrong to the touch. Slightly warm, slightly damp, as if it were breathing. No return address, no sender name, just the destination. Cabin 1, Circle Center. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes when he handed it over. They called specifically for you, he said quietly. Said no other driver would do. Said you'd understand why. What's in it? I asked. Don't know. Don't want to know. He turned away. Be careful out there, Ethan. The drive took 3 hours. The road to cabin 1 was different from all the others. Smoother, better maintained, as if it had been recently graded. Fresh gravel crunched under my tires. Someone had been preparing for this. The forest grew denser as I approached. The trees seemed to lean inward, creating a tunnel of shadows even in daylight. No birds sang. No squirrels chattered. The silence was absolute, oppressive, alive with anticipation. Cabin 1 appeared suddenly, emerging from the tree line like something conjured. It was larger than the others, 2 stories, built from logs so dark they were almost black. Smoke rose from the chimney in a thin, straight line, despite the absence of wind. All around the cabin in a wide clearing I saw them. 46 figures standing in a perfect circle, evenly spaced, facing inward. The residents of the other cabins. They wore identical dark robes. Their faces were hidden by hoods. I parked the truck, engine running, hands gripping the wheel. This was it. The moment of choice. Drive away now and leave this nightmare behind, or complete the delivery and face whatever waited inside. The $10,000. My debts. My fresh start. I thought about the previous drivers, about Jenkins, Chen, Reeves. They'd been smart enough to run, but I'd come too far, been part of this too long. Something inside me, curiosity, greed, or maybe something darker that had been growing these past months, needed to see how it ended. I grabbed the package and stepped out. The 46 figures turned as one, tracking my movement. I couldn't see their faces, but I felt their attention like heat against my skin. I walked toward the cabin. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if I were walking through water, through time itself. The door stood open. Inside, I could see stairs leading down into darkness. Not a basement, something deeper, something that predated the cabin, perhaps predated humanity itself. At the threshold, I hesitated. From below came a sound. A voice that wasn't quite a voice, speaking words that weren't quite words, calling me by a name I'd never heard but somehow recognized. I crossed the threshold. The door closed behind me with a sound like finality. The stairs descended far deeper than any basement should go. Stone gave way to carved rock, then to something older. Surfaces that predated human tools, smoothed by time and something else. Torches lined the walls, burning with flames that gave no heat. Their light was wrong, too green, too hungry, casting shadows that moved independently of their sources. At the bottom, a chamber, vast, ancient, the walls covered in symbols I recognized from the coins, the notes, the offerings. They pulsed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, or perhaps my heartbeat had synchronized to them. In the center stood a figure, tall, impossibly tall. The thing I'd seen in the forest, but here, in this sacred space, it didn't bother maintaining even the pretense of humanity. Its form shifted and flickered like static, never quite solid, never quite there. Around it, on the floor, a circle drawn in something dark. At specific points around the circle, the offerings I delivered. Bones, feathers, vials of darkness, all arranged with precise intent. One space remained empty, waiting for the final package. The figure turned its head, if you could call it a head, toward me. When it spoke, I heard it not with my ears but directly in my mind, in every language at once, and in none. Complete the circle. Join us. Become what you were always meant to be. I looked at the package in my hands, felt its warmth, its weight, its wrongness. This was the moment, the choice every driver before me had faced. Give in to the temptation, the money, the power, the promise of becoming part of something ancient and terrible, or refuse. Jenkins had refused. Chen had refused. Reeves had refused. I looked at the empty space in the circle, looked at the thing waiting in the shadows, thought about the $10,000, about my debts, about my failed life that had led me to this impossible moment. I made my choice. I dropped the package and ran. I don't remember the climb back up those stairs. Don't remember bursting through the door into daylight. Don't remember the 46 robed figures parting silently to let me pass, their hidden faces tracking my retreat. I remember driving, foot pressed to the floor, engine screaming, trees blurring past. I didn't stop until I hit the main highway, didn't breathe until I saw other cars, other people. Proof that the normal world still existed. That was 6 weeks ago. I quit the next day. Walked into the depot, handed Marcus my keys and uniform, said nothing. He didn't ask questions, just nodded like he'd been expecting it. I moved to Portland, got a job at a warehouse, indoor work, fluorescent lights, concrete floors, no trees, no silence, no cabins. But I can't sleep. Every night I lie awake, listening, waiting. The city sounds should comfort me, sirens, traffic, voices, but they don't. Because underneath them, I hear it. The silence from the mountains, growing, spreading. The offerings still appear, a black feather on my apartment balcony, 3 stones on my car hood. Yesterday, a carved figure in my locker at work. They're still watching, still waiting. And sometimes, late at night, I hear that voice in my mind. Not words, not language, just a feeling. The circle is incomplete. You are incomplete. Come back. Finish what you started. I won't. I can't. But the pull grows stronger every day. I've tried to research what happened, what I was part of. But every search leads nowhere. The property records for those 47 cabins, all purchased through shell companies that don't exist anymore. The names on the packages, J. Morrison, D. Hartley, Mrs. Ellis, none of them appear in any database. It's like they were never real. I called the Millbrook County office. The clerk I spoke to insisted there are no cabins on those coordinates. Said the land is protected wilderness, uninhabited, always has been. But I was there. I delivered to them. I saw them standing in that circle. Sometimes I wonder if the other drivers, Jenkins, Chen, Reeves, are out there somewhere, living with the same nightmares, or if they made different choices, if they went back and completed their circles. And the thing in the chamber beneath cabin 1, what was it? What did they want to summon or release or become? The circle remains incomplete. One package undelivered, one space unfilled. What happens to an unfinished ritual? Does it fade away? Or does it wait, patient and hungry, for someone else to stumble into those mountains and pick up where I left off? I don't know, and that's what terrifies me most. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, I need you to understand something. There are jobs out there that pay too well for what they ask. Routes that take you to places that don't appear on maps. Requests that seem harmless at first, but build into something darker. If you ever find yourself delivering packages to remote locations and the customers start leaving notes with impossible instructions, walk away. Don't think about the money. Don't convince yourself it's just eccentricity. Run. Because some deliveries aren't meant to be completed. Some circles should remain broken. I'm telling you this story not as a warning, but as a plea. If you know someone working these mountain routes, check on them. Make sure they're okay. And if you've experienced something similar, strange jobs, impossible requests, the feeling of being part of something you don't understand, share your story. Maybe together we can figure out what's really happening in those isolated places. Because I know one thing for certain. I wasn't the first. And unless someone stops it, I won't be the last. Stay safe out there. And remember, some silences are meant to remain unbroken.